Welcome to Cherie's weight loss journey. Yesterday I totally blew my diet, right? I was eating all kinds of watermelon and all kinds of yogurt flavored raisins. Yeah, and the chips. I had no discipline. Hold on. So, yesterday, I was experimenting on, what I would casually do, to, let's say, enjoy my time. Sorry, without, having to spend extra money, things that you can kind of do for free. I'm going into my garage. I'm looking at, some stuff that I had, in storage there, such as the blow-up canoe, the sun shelter, and the air mattress. Well, I was going to try to put up this shelter. I blew up the air mattress. That thing only took like 3 minutes to blow up with an air compressor. And I was like, oh, that's great. That's great. Right? But the rain came in and I decided, I didn't want to just put up the shelter just to turn around and have to, break it back down and put it away. So I did read the instructions on how to assemble it, just in case, in the future I would want to do that. Well, today, we have a kind of, muggy, overcast day. My temperature gauge says it's 89 degrees. But as I was contemplating, thinking that, progress is occurring and coming more and more to the realization that the only way that it can occur is through a revolution. I said it. A revolution, right? Because when people, consistently do a behavior over and over and over and over, eventually it gets etched into their character. And that's who they become. It becomes enmeshed into all areas of, their consciousness. Okay? So that's when it occurred to me that a lot of what we're experiencing now is years, centuries, millennials of behavior that has been reoccurring, which is now characteristic of their character. Right? If it had remained a behavior, that would be something that they could just change. Now, do I think a reversal of that behavior is possible? I do. But I couldn't even tell you how long it would take to reverse a behavior that has turned into a characteristic of that person, a character flaw. Okay? Now, to say that the behavior can change and therefore the character changes. No, that's not it. The behavior can change. The behavior can change. However, it takes a long time for the character to change. So then, of course, I had to ask myself, the behavior can change today, it can revert back tomorrow, it can change the day after tomorrow, etc., etc., etc. That being said, my mind said, nope, even though you might be able to have some type of stability, right? You might be able to go under the radar, right? But that's kind of gambling, and the odds are against me, right? So today, I'm like, okay, if I have to put my money where my mouth is, when I say, you're not going to enslave me, and you're not going to imprison me, you're not going to entice me, you're not going to coerce me, you're not going to intimidate me, and I will not let you anyway, the word that I'm looking for is, I'm not going to let you make me feel like I need to acquiesce to something that's not true to my higher self, right? Even if that means that I have to hit the ground living in a tent, getting food wherever I can, and depending on the kindness of strangers, right? I would rather depend on the kindness of strangers than succumb myself to a cruel, evil tyrant that has no compassion, no empathy, and just is on a power control ego trip. Okay? So now I have to come up with, well, if I put my money, I don't have no money, so I got to put my heart where my mouth is. Okay? So what does that mean? Well, if I hit the ground, right, I want to at least have basic shelter, right? So now I'm going to go and check out, some tents. I don't have money, so I have to find the most practical tent possible. Most practical tent possible. Right? I already have, like drinking filters, water tubes. I have some emergency tents, and that was just based off of, thinking that, there was going to be some kind of civil war. I, at that time, was not thinking that this war was going to be against me as a gender. And the fact that I'm a woman, that was not something I could possibly believe, because, I'm like, well, maybe it's just a couple of men, who had, some bad mothers. Okay? However, upon closer inspection, that wasn't it. That wasn't that. Yeah, what it is it's worse, right? Where men are like, nope, they don't want the position of the life that they was given, and the only way that they want the life that they were given is if, they're either, king of their castle where they enslave their woman and their children, and even then they're not happy with that. They want a kingdom, they want a country, they want the world. Oh yeah. It doesn't stop there. They want the galaxy. Right? I was watching this video of this guy, and he was talking about how men consider themselves to be marbles. I'm like, how are you a marble and you've done nothing marvelous? You have to do something marvelous in order to be a marble. So he didn't really quite get that, and so he still wanted to, try to filter in some ridiculous definitions of ideologies about making money. He also wanted to talk about expansion, right? And and each time this person got to the point, of stepping into the threshold of spirituality, he stopped and he made it seem like, no, this is something supernatural. It's totally alien. Only a few can do it, and I was like, what the hell? So anyway, I'm like, I'm really coming to the terms that, it would take a complete lobotomy and reprogramming for these dudes to ever catch on. And yet, they refuse to be reprogrammed. They swear up and down they love the life that they're living, while at the same time hating the life that they claim to love. Oh my God. They're so lost in the sauce. Okay? Lost in the sauce. So, like I said, I'm on my way to this camping store, right, to try to see if I could get me like a minimal survival gear, right? A minimal survival gear, because even though they see that, there's just a few women out here that are doing it, ain't all of them. It's like, well, we got young women to old women, single parent women to single women. What are you talking about? Right? So they're still in denial. They still think, well, even if I don't rule the world, I still want to live in, a $50 million home, and I don't care what it takes for me to be able to do that. It's like, oh, 50 million? Okay. Now, that so-called $50 million home, that could have been homes for how many people who just want a $500,000 home? They don't care. And you best believe that the majority of these people out here don't have the they don't have like that inventive creation that's going to make them $50,000. They just don't. Right? That's why they involve themselves in illicit, type of, businesses. Well, illicit, illegal businesses. And then they save face by laundering their money through racketeering and laundering their money, pretending to be outstanding citizens. And here's the thing, that's their model. Right? That's what they model after. They could be a lawn man, seeming as if, they're doing legitimate work, but all they want is enough money to buy them a product that they can flip faster than fast and come up. Small scale scamming. And even when they're doing the small scale scamming, they pretend that they're doing this to maintain their family. And if their family had known that this is what they were doing, the family would have said no. Did I want to go to Academy? I think there's a REI down the street. I can always come back to this. So yeah. And the gambling is totally against them, right? It is. It's totally against them, right? Because they got to deal with the laws. If they get caught, they could lose everything, right? And a lot of them are like, yeah, the odds that high, ain't no way I'm gonna lose. Ain't no way. I'm betting everything on it. And I'm like, wow. Wow, are you serious? And a lot of times it's because, they felt like they'll just get a slap on the wrist by the legal system, and released, after, pleading forgiveness and mercy to the courts. And of course, that causes a backlash to our policing system, because they're like, look, I risked my life catching this criminal, and you just release them after 2 years on probation so that they could turn around and do the same thing all over again. So yeah, I'm here at this REI. Gonna go in here and check out the pricing for what I would call my survival gear. And because even as a hobo, I would like to be prepared. Okay, I met this really nice associate here at REI. He educated me on the different things that I need to consider when I'm camping. And he told me about the $30 REI membership, and also the R factor when it comes to air mattresses, the temperature, if buying a sleeping bag, importance. He did tell me that backpacking equipment, they are much higher. He definitely asked me, would I be doing more of a car camping, or would I be doing like a hiking camping? Because the quality of material has to be durable yet lightweight, so that's and compact. And I thought that was so great. I thought it was great that he educated me, and and I told him, I said, well, I don't want to make an investment and then and then find out that this is not what I like. So he suggested that I go on Facebook, and he said you can do a search like Gals Outdoors or something like that, where you can get involved with their activities, and that way sort of and that way you can do the experience, because some of the outings, they have it to where you can rent equipment for the event, and that way you can see kind of what it is that you like, or what you need. right? Because there are air mattresses that you know, that inflate themselves, have memory foam. You know, there are tents that are just for basic shelter. There are other tents that have, complete blackout. He also told me the difference where, you can get like a rain guard, but he told me that the rain guard is not useful if it doesn't go all the way down to the ground. It's like, And inside of most tents, you really don't have a flooring. That's something that I noticed even on the expensive tent. You just have like a sheeting of cloth or whatever kind of material, and yeah, that was that. He did recommend, when buying a tent, to consider, your height. Are you going to be able to handle being in a tent where you can't stand up? And I'm like, I would rather be able to stand up, especially if, I have to change my clothes inside of the tent and stuff like that. I would. So I would say that was definitely an education. Now I'm thinking I might stop off at the academy, just to see what's going on. He told me that Coleman, they have products, but their products, aren't. He basically said Coleman products are more inferior to REI's products. Like, okay, all right. So yeah, the prices were cheap. They did have 25% off, 30% off, but the prices are not cheap. So that definitely makes me think twice about what I had seen online, and that's why I did want to before I buy, to actually see what kind of quality that I was getting. We even discussed how a sleeping bag can be, say, similar to a blanket with a zipper on it. I was like, yeah, I didn't think about putting a zipper on a comforter, and you can pretty much waterproof that by putting a plastic sheet in it, sew onto it, or put it in between blankets. A lot of creative things that you could do, to make things work. so far, my favorite product when it comes to outdoors is Columbia. I didn't really see any Columbia stuff in there. I did see, a couple of quick drying apparel. They did have a lot of different kinds of propane stoves, folding tables. He also suggested that since it's going to be like a car camping, that you could probably get away with using a simple air mattress, which is what I had filled up yesterday. However, I have a leak in that air mattress. The air mattress leaked out. I have to find out where that leak is. If I could patch up that leak, then I don't have to worry about buying an air mattress. So then I started shifting to, well, maybe a cot. And the cot that he had showed me was they have cheaper cots where you're pretty close to the ground. You're only like 4 inches from the ground versus 10 inches versus 15 inches from the ground. And then he told me that, the sturdiness of the cot makes all the difference in the world, along with, the ease of assembly. So it was a complete learning lesson that I appreciate, because I didn't have to figure it out on my own. It was quick, took about 15 minutes, and he pretty much let me know that he didn't feel as if it would be a problem for him to educate me, because that's what he was there for. So I let him educate me. So now I am going to go into Academy and take a look. So hold on. Okay, now these, they talk about the height and how many people can sleep in it. Okay. If it's for a kid, they'll say it's for a kid. Alright. Right. Like the mission tape tent. Okay. So yeah. So I did see this lantern with a fan that I'm gonna see how much it costs, and if it's not too much, I'm gonna buy it. Here they have the cots, right? Cots are pretty expensive. They also have these mats. I have one of those, a cheap brand. So yeah, they have inexpensive lightweight hammocks, which would probably be something that I would be interested in, even though I have a hammock. I have to learn how to put it together.